We are looking again at small business. Last week, we looked at some things about small business that was very, very positive about what America thinks, what America feels about various attributes of small business versus big business, and it was very telling. And what was also very telling is if you like those small businesses and you like what they do in your town, you gotta support them with what's going on. They could use your support. And right now I'm gonna tell you how much, because last week we talked about consumer perceptions. Right now we're gonna talk about small business owner realities, and then we've got a little case study on iRobot. Now, who's iRobot? iRobot makes Roomba, the little robot vacuum runs around your house and then it goes parks itself back in its charger, charges up till tomorrow. Really amazing things, very helpful, especially like apartments and stuff like that. Cleans it up so you don't have to. But there's a big story behind it because Amazon's trying to buy Roomba and they've been trying to buy it for about a year. And I'm going to tell you how it's going or not going. And there's a real big case study in that for you and me for when we get ready to sell our company, whether we're running a t-shirt company in Berlin or a tech company in California. There's a lot we can learn for it. But first, let's go look at small businesses from last week where we found out that America, when you get beyond price, America really likes their small businesses. They think that they're better for their employees, that they're easier to work with, that they've got more integrity. It was an amazing list of things that people felt about small businesses. And now let's go take a look, because I got a couple of you sent me some notes, and I dug through those notes and I found some government stats that are kind of shocking right now with regard to what's going on in small business. So let's pop up the first chart. The first chart is the National Federation of Independent Businesses, the NFIB. So this is a industry trade organization, and they're showing starting in 2018 down to 2023 the optimism index. And this optimism index is very similar to presidential indexes, where people say, you know, what is the positive or negative, you know, approval rating or lack of approval rating of Congress or of a president. And those happen all over the world. And here in the United States, it's very common to say Biden's approval rating is down, Biden's approval rating is up, back and forth. Well, you might think of this as, what do small businesses think in terms of their optimism index? What is their approval or disapproval of what they feel is coming in the economy as it's going to affect them? Like saying, you know what, I'm not as optimistic as I was, because remember, small business, they can't run debt for 25 years the way, you know, large businesses can. They gotta cover it, and they have to figure out ways to make ends meet. So it starts out, this chart starts out 2018 when the ratio there was about 105. So they were feeling kind of, you know, optimistic. Well, that has gone down from 18 with a big drop in 2020. That was the COVID drop, stock market drop. People were locked up at home. How can you be optimistic as a small business owner, especially if you happen to be running a restaurant or someplace that people couldn't get to because it was lockdown? And it keeps going down. And now the optimism index is lower than it got all the way in 2020. So meaning, if you think of it as a presidential approval rating and think about the worst possible moment, and then think about it popping back up, and rather than dropping like a spike, it starts flowing down. Well, now it's flowed down to the point that the optimism index is down around, you know, 85, 88, which is significant. So that means small businesses are not very optimistic about the state of affairs right now. Maybe it's about their customers, or about their market, or about, you know, are they able to get a loan at the bank to buy equipment, do normal things that they would do, buy 2 more trucks, you know, for their construction business, whatever it is. But the optimism is down, and that's kind of sad. Now I think we're gonna be able to tell you why and what's going on here. So the next chart, please. This next chart is a chart that shows the debt. And this is debt by revenue of companies. And so there's 3 lines on this chart. The dark blue one is super small businesses that have less than 100 grand in revenue. Then there's a light blue line, 100 to 500,000, a greenish line from 500 to $1 million, and then a dark green line of businesses that have more than $1 million in revenue. All of them are showing that the credit card balances for small businesses are now higher than they were pre-pandemic. So in other words, there's a bit of a recovery happened in 2021 to 22 when we all got unlocked, woohoo, could run outside some more. Well, guess what? At that time, the credit card debt for those small businesses of any size, only 100,000 in sales, all the way up to over $1 million in sales. Small businesses in America, dry cleaners, lawn service, a construction guy, all those things that make up America's small businesses. Well, credit card balances are very high. Now, why is that? So I dug into it to say, what's going on? Well, number one, small businesses are usually tied to the owner's credit. And so an owner has a credit card on the small business, they're usually having to back that personally, which is kind of interesting. So that means that credit card debt for a small business is really extra owner debt in the name of the business, but it's going to come back to that person, that owner. And so I dug in and checked this out. Small businesses right now, thanks to inflation and thanks to what's happened in the economy, they have less savings account than they had previously, and the business has shown signs of softening. And those are the things that banks look at before they'll give them a small business loan or even SBA loans. They have to show some health of the business. And with inflation over the last 18 months, believe it or not, over all of 2023 and part of 2022, when the interest rates started going up at the Fed, guess what? Banks have been saying that it's been harder to get small businesses qualified for standard loans. Uh-oh. Guess what? So if you need a loan to do some things and you can't do that, where does a small business turn to? Credit card debt. So check this out. 53%, I got some stats here. 53% of banks reported substantially weaker demand over the past 3 months for loans for small businesses. Whoa. So what they're talking about is basically October, September, August. This is back to school, college football, pro football. It's usually a pickup, in the rate and the size of business in America. It's usually good news for the stock market, for business owners, for a lot of people. Back to school, kids are buying clothes, they're back in school, they're buying athletic equipment for sports at school, they're buying books. Think about all that. And then we go back to, we're getting ready for holiday spending, we're buying TVs and watching football. There's a lot of things that go into it that make third quarter in the United States a very big time where consumers come off travel spending in the summer and vacations, and suddenly they start spending on things. Well, 53% of banks said that small businesses are less demand, the demand is weaker for these loans. And they took a look, okay, what is it for large firms? So I dug in that. Only 40% of the banks said that they were seeing any change really in loans for large firms. So you can see the difference between the large firms and the small firms. And at the same time, it was the Bank of America Institute that produced that graph that I just showed you that says credit card balances are rising among small businesses, meaning the owners are carrying more personal credit card debt for their business, and the credit card debt is at a much different and higher interest rate than a business loan would be. I mean, right now you go out to get a car loan, it's probably 7.5%, 8%. If you go to get a business loan, maybe touch more than that. Credit cards, 25%. So you've got these poor owners that are out there using credit cards to do that. So this suggests that small businesses are already starting to feel the pinch. And if fourth quarter isn't good, and we just heard that Black Friday was okay, that it was spectacular for online businesses, what they call cyber business, people buying online, that it was big. It was actually up 8% online business from last year, but mall traffic was down a bit, and retail brick and mortar sales were down a little bit. So it just shows that small businesses maybe having a tough time right now. So here's to hoping that those interest rates are truly going to get cut in January, and that small business has a good Q4 and we don't go into a recession, so that they can stand a chance to get back to the banks, get regular business loans at reasonable rates, and not being depending on credit card loans, which roll right up to the owner because they have a thing called a personal guarantee. Small businesses don't get credit the way big businesses do, and this is the way it's working in the U.S.